Hey guys, Moldran here. In one of my last videos about elemental damage, I said that I'm gonna answer questions to go even further in detail, and that's what I'm gonna do with this video. Now, for example, YouTube user X here asked, this video was way too short, there's a lot of things you didn't say. And that's true, and that's why I'm making a new enter video to answer all of the questions and the more complicated ones, and maybe help people understand elemental damage and pretty much damage calculation in general in Diablo even better. So the first question is from Townlord. He says, when I have 50% lightning damage and a weapon with 2000 lightning damage, does the lightning damage increase the damage of the weapon by 50% up to 3000 damage? So pretty much what the YouTube user said was, for example, you have weapons here, like for example say Burning Axe, and this weapon has its primary stat 1130, 2405 fire damage. The Thunder Fury also has fire damage because I rerolled it, then Shadow Fate has poison damage, and the question now is, how do those different damage types, for example, factor in different skill runes? For example, Hem of the Ancients cold damage, Hem of the Ancients fire damage. Well, the answer is, it completely does not matter. It is completely irrelevant what type of damage you have on your weapon. There's one exception, there's the percent damage affix. It only works properly right now on physical damage, but apart from that, there's really no effect of the fire damage. You can use cold damage weapon, and cold damage, let's say this could be cold damage or this could be cold damage, and you could still use fire damage Hota and still do the same amount of damage. There used to be, back in vanilla Diablo, those effects actually had some use, because cold damage back in the days was able to freeze monsters, but they removed that. So if you have cold damage weapons now, it's actually not going to do anything at all for you. And it's really important to understand that the weapon DPS is not matter, because I see a lot of people say like, oh damn, I wanted to roll higher DPS in my Thunder Fury, but now, and I'm playing a Lightning Monk, but now I reroll like average damage, even though it's high, but it's not lightning damage, so I have to reroll it again. And that's where you have to tell them, no, a fire damage Thunder Fury is just as good for a Lightning Monk as any other Thunder Fury, because the damage on the weapon does not matter. Next question is from Superior Bean, and he says, does elemental damage bonus apply to legendary item procs like Thunder Fury? And what he wants to know is, for example, there's certain items with procs. For example, the Thunder Fury has a proc chance on hit to blast the enemy with lightning, dealing 298% weapon damage as lightning. And just a few other examples, we have the Shadow Fate, which has a proc that says elemental skills have a chance to trigger powerful attack that deals 250% weapon damage. Then there's several other procs. There's a Fulminator that has also like a lightning damage proc, and so on. And here it's important that it is very item specific. Now most items, for example, Firewalkers, or there's a Witch Doctor Helm that has special effects, and most of those items, for example Firewalkers, deal fire damage. And they directly scale with your fire damage on the character. So for example, I have fire damage here, 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 and so on. So in total I have, I think, 92% fire damage, and that actually makes my Firewalkers deal 92% more damage. That has been tested already multiple times, and there's a lot of legendaries actually, in fact for most legendaries it works that way. So most legendaries actually gain damage, but then there's some legendaries, for example Thunder Fury or Fulminator, who are getting more lightning damage, that's actually not increased the effectiveness of the proc. So for those legendaries, those two legendaries, it's not going to work. Another legendaries where it's not working is Maximus. And one reason for that could be because Maximus damage isn't clearly defined as like fire damage or physical damage, and maybe it's like, or maybe it just isn't supposed to work on Maximus damage. But yeah, it depends on the legendary, and you probably need to do some research if it works on your own legendary or not. You can probably even test it yourself. For example, you can get, let's say, bracers, and the only stat on the bracers is 20% damage to fire. And when you have a weapon with, like, let's say, a FireSkill, let's say for example a Firewalkers, you could like turn on those or put on those bracers, and then compare them with, okay, next time you have to put like no bracers or same bracers with same stats but just without the fire damage, and compare if it actually ticks some more or not. It's really easy to see as long as you turn damage numbers on. But yeah, this is really specific to legendaries. The next question is from Fungo, and he says, since we're talking about it, when is it worth to put a diamond in your weapon over an emerald? Ever? I feel like the answer is never, but you bring up a good point about the potential, I guess, of elite damage. And this is a really, really interesting question that actually is so interesting that I'm actually going to calculate it myself. With my current level of gear, I want to see the difference between a crit damage gem and a diamond gem. So first I have to like pick up my diamond gem here. And you can see a diamond gem increases damage against elites by 20%. and crit damage gem increases the crit damage by 130%. So those are the two options I have here. So first what I need to do is, I need to see, okay, what is really the difference? So now with the crit damage gem, I'm going to write down the numbers. I have 913,000 damage, 913,248 DPS. Then what I need is like all the other damage types that I have right now. And that's fire damage. 18 plus 19 is 37, plus 19 is 56, plus 19 is 75, plus 17 is 92. So we have 92% fire damage. And then my elite damage right now is 30% from the SOJ. So those are currently my damage modifiers. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove my gem here. And you can see my DPS goes down to 748,360. I keep the 92% fire damage. And my elite damage goes up to 50%. So okay. Those are the numbers, and now it's time to go to Excel and like put those numbers into calculations. So to actually see like, okay, which gem is better. So that's the next thing I'm going to do now. Okay, so here I prepared this Excel sheet, and we have the scenario one where my base DPS with the crit damage gem was 913,248. Then we have 0.92 FireSkill damage, which is 92%, and 0.3 elite damage. In the second scenario, all we have is the damage went down to 748,360. We got 0.92 FireSkill damage, and we got 0.5 elite damage. So what we do here is we calculate against trash mob, which are white mobs, what you're most likely gonna kill, and we're gonna calculate against elites and see if the difference, like first of all, is even higher, like that the elite damage gem is even higher against elite, and secondly we're gonna calculate, okay, how much higher is it, and is it worth to like get a bit DPS increase for a loss of trash DPS. So the way how we calculate DPS should be nothing new to you guys. We take again the base DPS times bracket open 1 plus fire skills, bracket close times bracket open 1 plus elite damage. Oh, against trash, of course, it's out that. Let me just copy paste this. That's what we're gonna need here. And here we're gonna remove the elite damage. This keyword. Okay. So against trash we have 1.75 million DPS, and against elites we have 2.28 million DPS. Now we do the same here. And let's see, against trash we're probably gonna do significantly less DPS. 1.43, so that's actually a big DPS loss. And against elites, what's our DPS against elites now? That's a really important thing. Times 1.92 times 1.5. 2.15. So you can see, with the elite damage gem, what happens is that against trash our DPS is significantly less, and against elites is not as much less, but still less than with the crit damage gem. And so it's not even like an option, because to be an option we would actually have to compare, okay, how does it compare, or how much higher is it? And this is actually even worth, let's say, get, for example, 2% more elite damage to forego 12% trash damage. In my opinion, that wouldn't be worth it, but yeah, it's not even better against elites. So the elite damage gem in its current state is like completely useless. Mainly due to the fact that crit damage gems are just so much better and increase like the damage of everything, like its base DPS, so like all the multipliers really work well on it. And yeah, as much as we'd love to see diversity in gems, we're not going to see it here. I mean, Blizzard announced legendary gems and that might fix it, but right now you can calculate for yourself, but I think for most setups the crit damage gem is actually going to be much better than the elite gem. Alright, that's that. Next question. My YouTube subscriber Sarcoma1 asks, how about buffs? If I have 1 million DPS with no buffs and with buffs 1.6 million, 20% of fire damage is 1 million plus 20%, or 1.6 million plus 20%. Well, this is pretty simple. buffs are just like another layer, another like type that's going to be calculated on the base DPS. So for example, in this scenario, what we would have is here on top we have, for example, let's say Battle Rage, Marauder's Rage, and you can see here that's 15% more damage. And what is going to change is first it's going to change your base DPS, or not the base DPS, but the final DPS. So the final DPS with Battle Rage Marauder would be pretty much the same calculation times 1.15. Alternatively, you can do the same again. You can do, for example, base DPS times 1 plus fire skills times 1 plus elite skills times 1 plus Battle Rage. But in this case, it's easier to just like take the already previously calculated one times 1.15. And you can see the reason like why all those buffs like Battle Rage or Monk buffs or Crusader buffs are so good is because they like really are another layer to the DPS calculation, and that's really going to improve your overall DPS a lot, because everything like the elite damage, the FireSkill damage, everything is like snowballing with that buffs that you get. That's also why like some shrines like the Power Shrine or even the Empower Shrine are so strong, because they work like on pretty much everything else you do. It's not like that this and how this actually like works is like the 15% from Battle Rage are going to be like multiplied to the base DPS, but then you still like just multiplicate the other stats as well. So ultimately like buffs are very, very strong, and yeah, it actually like increases your overall DPS and not just like the base DPS, because the 15%, as you see here, you actually gain more than 250,000 damage. And if this would be 15% here, it wouldn't even be like 150,000 damage. So that's why it like really snowballs and is really strong. Next question is from Kai, and he says, elite and elemental damage is okay, but what is with the skill percent damage? How does it calculate that? And that's also a really, really good point. Now let's remove the Battle Rage here to make it more simplified and enter a new row. He wants to ask, for example, okay, everything here is nice and good, but how does it really work with, for example, Hammer of the Ancients? Now let's say you're a barb, you use Hammer of the Ancients Smash. Hota Smash, which is 640% more damage. Well, you calculate it just like everything else. Hota Smash, 640% is 6.4 here. And again, you add, just for example, on Hota, you could say, the DPS is going to be the following. Again, you take the base DPS, times, bracket open, 1 plus FireSkill damage, bracket close, times, bracket open, 1 plus elite damage, calculating here against elites, who cares? Actually, I'm not going to calculate against elites, I'm going to calculate for normal mobs. But yeah, times, Hota Smash, bracket open, 1 plus the Hota Smash. And you see the DPS goes actually up to 12.975 million, which is actually a big increase. Now that's how you can calculate it. So Hota Smash or skills, whatever, are just going to be factored with the same calculation. But what I want to show now is that you can actually like, calculate the same thing in game. You can actually calculate how much your Hammer of the Ancients is going to crit, for example. And I'm going to go in game now to do this test. Okay, so here I am again. And let's put the crit damage gem again. So you have our base DPS of 913k. But this is DPS, this is damage per second. What we need now, first, before we calculate our Hota damage, is we need to find out, okay, what is our base damage? Because it's just DPS over time, but depending on attack speed and other stuff, your base attack damage might actually be different. So what I'm going to do here is, first I'm going to turn off the crit damage numbers. Turn off the normal numbers, and we're going to do it for crits. And what I'm going to show now is, I'm going to remove this Hota from the bar here. Best way to remove Hota is just use it somewhere else. Let's see, instead of Warcry. No, not instead of Warcry, instead of Earthquake. We use Hota. And then we have pretty much basic attack here, which swings to 100% melee damage. So that's our normal damage. And I'm gonna go to, let's say, doesn't matter, the bridge. So now I'm gonna do a few attacks and like try to figure out, okay, around what damage is my crit damage. Or, yeah, when I crit. And the best for this is probably to take off the Thunder Fury because of the proc. So for this calculation, okay, I'm gonna write down the new DPS, which is 584,000. 760. Okay. And I'm gonna attack a few times. 1 million, 1 million, 920k, 1 million, 1.1 million, non-crits, 950k, 1 million, 1 million, 970k. Okay, so I would say the damage is right exactly around 1 million. Alright, and now I'm gonna use my calculator. By the way, that like 1 million on 2 targets I've seen before is the area damage, which is pretty good still. Okay, but yeah, what I need now is my calculator. So now I'm gonna calculate, okay, how much would Hota crit for? Fire damage Hota. I can like tell this now, I don't need to play, I can actually predict the damage numbers. So what I do for this here is, I open my inventory, and I have the 584,760 DPS here. And again, I'm gonna calculate my times 1.92 fire skill damage. And that's pretty much it. I'm not gonna attack elites. What I need to calculate in is Hota. And Hota, if I equip it here, with the Smash rune is 640%, so times 7.4. And it tells me it's gonna do around 8.3 million per crit. 8.3 million, so anything between like 7 to 9.5 million should be the range. Let's see if we can crit around 8.3 million. Let's see if the calculation is correct. 8.1, 7.4, 9.2, 9.3, and it's area damage. 8.0, 8.3, 8.1, 8.3, 10.8. But the last was 10.8 because of Rampage, so that's another thing you have to consider. Like, Rampage actually increases my DPS, and that's why like the later Hota numbers are going to be a bit higher. But you see, like, actually the average was exactly around 8.3, which was exactly what I calculated. And so pretty much now you know, or should have a very good understanding of how the damage is being calculated, how the elemental damage is being calculated, and how even skills factor in. And hope I was able to answer your question. And I have one more left, and the final question is by Live for Death 2222. And he has a question. He says, I have an amulet that has crit damage 90%, but I have another amulet that gives me 18% fire damage. What is better between these two stats, crit damage or elemental damage? And this is, I'm going to use my barb as an example of how to calculate this, like how you're able to like compare those two stats. Here's like one amulet, let's say with strength, crit chance, and crit damage, and one with like same strength, or around same strength, same crit chance, but 80% fire damage instead of the crit damage. He wants to know what is better for him. Now let me show you a way to calculate this. It's going to be a bit more difficult for me than for you, but I'm still going to try to like show it. Alright, so this is currently my character. I didn't put any paragon points here into crit damage. I show only 5%. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start at 0%. So first I want to see, okay, how much damage do I get per crit damage? And right now my DPS, so my base DPS here is 876,465. And I want to see now, okay, how much do 10% crit give me? 10% crit damage give me up to 889,149. So I gained roughly around 13k DPS from that. And with that difference between the new DPS and the old DPS, I can calculate now, okay, how much would I gain with 90% crit damage? So let's see the difference here. Minus 876,465 times 9. So the 90% crit damage with my current gear would give me 114,156 DPS. Which means my base DPS would go up to 800 plus this would go up to 990,621. That's the most important number, plus the base DPS before. And now it's time again to go to Excel and like really see the difference with my current gear level. And then I might even like calculate for like another gear level of someone else. But yeah, let's go. So here I have my Excel sheet again. I'm gonna change some things here. Don't need Hota damage here. I don't need scenario 2 anymore. And my base DPS, okay, so scenario 1 is with the 90% crit damage amulet. And scenario 2 is going to be with the 18% fire damage amulet. Okay. So in the first scenario, we had a base DPS of 876,465 and the second one of 990,621. But in this scenario, actually it's the other way around. That's of 9% crit damage, and here I have 18% less FireSkill damage, which turns into 0.74. Okay. Let's calculate now against Trash. And against Elites, doesn't matter. It's gonna be more or less. Against Trash, the new DPS is gonna be this times 1.92. Again, 1 plus the FireSkill damage. And it's actually way more. So you can see, that is way more. 1 plus F7, yeah, calculations, right. I mean, you can easily see this, like 80% increase in FireSkill damage. We're comparing 8% increase in FireSkill damage against an increase of let's make it like this, so it looks even better. Against an increase of 30% in the base DPS. So yeah, here you can see the 80% increase in FireSkill damage actually matters more than the 30% increase in the base DPS, and therefore also against elites it's pretty much the same. Calculate this times 1.3. Elite damage is unaffected by this. You see, with the fire damage, amulet would do more damage against Trash and against elites. That's simply showing like how strong FireSkill damage is. And the second scenario that I want to show is actually even much harder to show, because the only way where the base DPS, the crit damage amulet, would be better is if you have insane amounts of FireSkill damage already, where the increase of FireSkill damage would be less than 13%. And I can actually calculate this. Now, how much, I can actually like calculate how much fire damage would be like as good as 90% crit damage. And that would be just 30% more. So 0.74 times 1.13 is 0.84. So 10% more FireSkill damage would in this case scenario with my gear currently equal 90% crit damage. And I hope this is not too complicated. I think you can like make your own Excel sheet and like make the calculation for your own gear level. But this, like the calculation I just did, that surprised me a bit myself. I did it here for the first time on my video. But yeah, it really shows like how strong the fire damage is, because you can really like increase that value a lot. And yeah, hopefully my video today was useful. I know I didn't make a video for a long time because I was busy with streaming, but I definitely want to like shift more time now from the streaming up to the YouTube videos, because a lot of people told me they missed them. They want to see some theory crafting, they want to see some fun stuff, and I have a lot of content I want to produce and make. And yeah, just let me know if you like this, if you like videos like that, or if you want to see something different. I hope you guys had a good time and understood most of it. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'm gonna answer them again. This time probably in the comments. But I really like to like just summarize some of the questions and like address those like directly in another video. Hope you had a good time. Thanks for watching. I'll be back.